I like the one that says shampoo.
Tony Soprano doesn't run an empire. He runs a glorified leaky faucet that bleeds cash in every direction. In the world of The Sopranos, the question of who exactly pockets Tony's envelopes is both simple and endlessly complicated.
To kick upstairs to Tony Soprano will be an honor.
On the surface, Tony is the boss. He doesn't kick up to anyone because, in the pyramid scheme of organized crime, the money runs uphill until it reaches the top and stops there.
He had augmented his kick this week.
Whatever cash is brought in by Paulie, Christopher, Vito, or any of the other so-called earners ultimately lands in Tony's hands.
Does he eat alone? He doesn't even pass the salt.
The man eats alone, and he doesn't even pass the salt. But reality, as always with Tony, is messier.
Tony, it's come to our attention you bought property around Frelinghuysen Avenue. That property's hot because of the Esplanade.
The only time New York ever sees a cent from him is when there are shared ventures. The Esplanade construction project, stolen cars from Italy, or the occasional hijacking that happens to cross state lines. Beyond that, the Lupertazis aren't Tony's bosses. They're business partners, resentful ones.
Carmine always said the Sopranos are nothing more than a glorified crew.
When Phil Leotardo snarls about redundant upper management bleeding off half the kick, he's not describing some formal chain of tribute payments. He's rationalizing why New York should simply steamroll New Jersey altogether and keep the profits. Phil, naturally, dresses up personal vendetta as business efficiency. Tony himself is no less duplicitous when it comes to money.
We have to change our arrangement.
In one scene, he refuses to increase Junior's subsistence allowance, dismissing his uncle's mounting medical and legal bills.
I gave you 5% on the action that was lefty.
In the very next, he demands that his captains grow their revenue streams, using Junior's looming trial as justification for the squeeze. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so transparently cruel.
Tell me why this was a smart move to make Junior the big willie.
Junior serves Tony mainly as a lightning rod for the FBI, a living prop to convince outsiders he's still the boss. The crumbs Tony allows him are less a tribute and more an insurance policy to keep him from flipping, a precaution that's almost insulting, since Junior is too steeped in the life to ever consider it. Silvio, ever the dutiful consigliere, parrots Tony's pep talk about organized crime being recession-proof. His contribution amounts to reminding the capos that racketeering and vice don't obey the laws of Wall Street.
Those envelopes are light, over 10% each week.
Translation: stop making excuses about the economy and bring in more envelopes. Or else. It's a managerial strategy ripped straight from the hypocrisy playbook. Demand higher output from subordinates while tightening the spigot for those above.
Silvio, Mr. Soprano's guy, came by this morning, said to pull your job.
Of course, Tony's responsibilities don't end with envelopes stuffed into his pockets. A large part of his income is eaten up by the costs of doing business.
I'm just saying how we decided to give a bigger percentage to the union guys than the customs guys.
You're shitting me.
Corrupt politicians, union delegates, and beat cops all have palms to be greased. There are widows of fallen soldiers to support, at least the ones Tony deems worthy of high-efficiency windows, as if bereavement came with an energy rating.
You will give Paulie 5 carpenter jobs, 2 no-shows, and 3 no-works.
There are no-show jobs to distribute, construction contracts to rig, and the occasional Rhode Island hit squad that requires 20 grand up front.
20 grand, we said.
Half up front.
In between, there are property taxes, Carmela's Columbia University bills, and the upkeep of a 6,000-square-foot house stocked with big screens, scooters, and a steady supply of gabagool.
The television.
Being the boss is expensive, especially when one is also a degenerate gambler, prone to losing large sums at Hesch's card tables. Speaking of Hesch, his financial relationship with Tony is peculiar.
He's taxing me, Tony.
Did you tell me you operated for years without any tax?
Technically, he doesn't kick up to anyone, operating tax-free with the boss's blessing, a savings worth millions to a loan shark. Instead, he becomes Tony's occasional lender, a role made all the more bitter by Tony's inability to pay him back without resentment. Then there is Silvio, who somehow maintains a mansion and private school tuition without a crew of his own. His earnings, it's implied, come from his role as consigliere and silent partner in the Bing's laundering operations.
We are for the money.
Money. Get Tony's money right here.
Furio, meanwhile, represents another category, the enforcer on payroll. He doesn't collect envelopes so much as ensure others do, his earnings tucked into bogus contracts and no-show jobs. If the financial architecture of the family resembles anything, it's pooled tips at a bar.
Likewise, weekly, I collect for the skip.
Everyone contributes, but muscle and middle management take their cut, because without them, nothing flows. Chris and Polly collect the cash. Furio makes sure the collectors are feared.
Naturally, I want my taste. Retroactive.
And Tony sits at the top, carving out shares for Junior, Sil, and occasionally New York when a project requires cooperation.
40% of the HUD take across the boards.
New York, for its part, treats New Jersey like an inconvenient middleman. Johnny Sack and later Phil Leotardo constantly remind Tony that his crew, for all their profitability, is a glorified branch office of the five families.
I said 40, you said 5.5, which was ridiculous.
Whenever the Lupertazis want to whet their beaks, be it the housing scam, construction rackets, or card games, they do so with the quiet authority of a parent skimming allowance money from an unruly child. Tony resents it, but he plays along because refusing entirely would invite war.
So Junior whacked up my money and kind of spread it around, huh?
Meanwhile, Junior remains a strange presence in the money flow. Early in the series, when he holds the title of boss, Tony dutifully kicks up to him.
For you, Junior, and anybody the fuck else.
Once Tony consolidates power, Junior becomes more ornamental, but still receives enough to maintain the illusion of authority. The mechanics are fuzzy. Most likely, Bobby delivers a discreet slice of the boss's cut to Junior, a symbolic gesture that placates him while leaving the real power and profits with Tony. Nobody complains, which suggests everyone understands the charade and finds it cheaper than open conflict. The truth is that Tony doesn't kick up in the traditional sense. He pays out. To New York on joint ventures,
What's the story with this fucking speeding ticket, Assemblyman?
to politicians and cops for protection, to family widows for appearances, to Carmela for tuition and real estate dreams, and to his rotating gallery of gumas because lust has its price.
What I want to tell you is for your ears only. And chills.
He loses money to Hesh at the card table, funnels envelopes to Sil for consigliere duties, and hands Junior just enough to keep him from sulking in front of the feds. If the FBI ever listened in, they'd still hear Junior being called the boss, which was the entire point. In the end, Tony Soprano's financial world is a study in hypocrisy and self-preservation. He demands loyalty while skimming from everyone, insists on prosperity while pinching allowances for those who need them, and pretends to be recession-proof while struggling to pay for Carmela's orange juice with just some pulp.
I like the one that says shumpo.
He never kicks up in the formal sense. He bleeds sideways, downward and outward, all while presenting himself as the unchallenged apex of the pyramid. The money, like everything else in Tony's world, doesn't trickle logically.
And that Sprick House, I made the down payment.
It sloshes chaotically, greasing palms, silencing uncles, placating mistresses, and funding Carmela's kitchen renovations.
He didn't have an envelope.
New Jersey's envelopes stop at Tony, yes. But from there, they scatter in a dozen directions.
10 to Junior.
It's less a criminal empire than a leaky faucet, one that Tony constantly insists is under control, even as it drips him slowly toward ruin. The mob ran on envelopes. This channel runs on subscribers.